Yesterday, when I was thinking of doing this new episode of my YouTube, I thought, let me divide those 15 or so minutes into two parts. One part would focus on the event that will take place, the signing ceremony that would take place at the White House later today in Washington, D.C. And the other half, I thought, would be on the new government and the challenges of the new government that Prime Minister designate Mustafa Adib was supposed to present to the Lebanese president in Beirut. However, as some of us already know, some of Lebanon's political chieftains are fighting a bitter rearguard action against this new government. They don't want to lose their influence, mind you, who does? But it's been a bit of a roller coaster political time in Beirut these days, with pressures coming from France and elsewhere. But at the last minute, we all found out that there wasn't yet a government in Lebanon, one that would hopefully receive the approval of the president and then the vote of confidence in the House of Parliament. But none of that happened. So that made my life a little bit easier. I thought, well, out goes the Lebanon part of this episode, and in stays the bit about the White House. Somehow, I don't think that event will also be postponed. So welcome to Intuitive Reactions, the MENA and Gulf regions. This is number 35, and Gulf in the MENA and Gulf regions is quite prominent in today's new 35th episode. So in a few hours, Washington, D.C. and the White House are going to be busy. They're going to host Prime Minister Netanyahu, who arrived from Israel earlier, as well as the foreign ministers of the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, who together will be signing this peace deal, peace treaty, normalization pact, call it what you want. And what we can be sure of is that it will not just be a sober, business-like meeting. It will be one with lots of smiles and lots of florid words, with Netanyahu choking up with emotion and saying what a wonderful day this is for peace, that here is an example, an indisputable example of peace for peace rather than peace for land. We've become used to this. I mean, I've been hearing this at least once a day for the last couple of weeks. And President Trump will remind us that were it not for his leadership, this will not have happened. This breakthrough with two Gulf countries within a space of 1 month coming together and signing a peace deal with Israel, that could only happen because we have President Donald J. Trump and his team in Washington, D.C. and also in Jerusalem. And in the background, you will see the key players, not least amongst them is that most incredible of politicians, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law. There will, of course, also be the UAE, the Emirati, and Bahraini foreign ministers. They will probably have a slightly more sober, more staid attitude because of the noise that has been created by their decision to normalize relations with Israel back home in their respective countries, but also in the wider and broader Arab world. Now, of course, some of you keen-eyed will say, aha, Netanyahu is there, Trump is there, all the glitterati are there. Where is the Crown Prince of the United Arab Emirates, and where is the King of Bahrain? Well, MBZ's absence has been noteworthy. And a lot of explanations have been made about this. I leave this to people who are far more into the Gulf and America scenes to comment on it. But people have said, is it because the Crown Prince MBZ, Mohammed bin Zayed, that is upset because he hasn't or yet got the green light for his F-35 fighters? Is it because we are coming toward an American presidential election and the UAE was thought to play a role in promoting Trump through their own people in DC, and therefore he does not want to court any kind of unnecessary speculation. Be that as it may, the two signatures from the Emiratis and the Bahrainis will be as valid with their foreign ministers as it will have been for this occasion with their leaders. So here we go. The UAE and Bahrain, absent a last-minute unpredictable surprise, will by tonight have a formal peace treaty with Israel, and the Americans will be happy. Trump will think, and I think that's a very, I don't know, I'm not convinced that it's going to play very much in the presidential elections in the USA, but he's going to say that it's me, I did it. And he likes this it's me statement. There is in Arabic a very nice little maxim which says "Ana najjini min kalimat ana," which roughly translated means me, please save me from the word me. But President Trump is good at that, and so is Prime Minister Netanyahu, but in a far more subtle way. So here we go. Bahrain, with the US Fifth Fleet in the small kingdom, will be at peace with Israel. The Emirates are already introducing kosher menus in their hotels in order to attract business people as well as tourists to come to this Gulf country. And of course, we will talk about the benefits of this peace deal in terms of tourism, in terms of IT, in terms of exports, in terms of coordination, and of course, last but certainly by no means least, a common strategy. And I'm using the word strategy advisedly. I don't want to use a bigger word at this stage and then be accused of bias. A strategy, a common strategy against the common nemesis or the common enemy, Iran. Now, Iran being an enemy of Israel and Netanyahu, or of the US and Trump, is something I can buy more easily than when we say that Iran is also an enemy of the United Arab Emirates, given the commercial relations and the presence of a lot of Iranians in the Emirates. But I'm not going to go there either for two reasons. One, I've only got 15 minutes and I'm already eating into that. Secondly, because I don't want to be provocative. I don't want to sound negative. I don't want to sound too supercilious about this whole event that is taking place at the White House later today. Let me just say that there are realities on the ground, both in the Emirates and in Bahrain and in Israel and in the United States, that makes the leaders of those four countries very keen on having this deal go through, and each one is going to use it for their own benefit. The American president for his own electoral prospects, Netanyahu for his own hopes of survival, given that in his own country he's not the most popular leader these days, and Naftali Bennett is pretty much chasing him quite fiercely. And as far as the Emirati and Bahraini leaders are concerned, well, they made their bed, they're going to lie in it, and let us see if it's going to be a comfortable mattress or not. I have no idea at the moment. But one thing that is for me is I'm wistful, I'm sad, I regret that we have made so much noise about the El Al Israeli airline going through Emirati airspace, going through Bahraini airspace, crossing through Saudi airspace. First, it was an exceptional crossing. Now it's open for all Israeli El Al flights in the region. All this, we made so much noise about it, and yet an hour or so near both the UAE and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, for that matter, is the Emirate of Qatar. And those three countries that have embargoed Qatar refuse, amongst other things, to have the Qatari Airways go through their airspace in order to shorten the time and make it easier for Qatar Airways to fly in the region and from the region into the MENA and elsewhere. So in a sense, I find it sad that neighbors, in some sense tribal brothers, are so much dead set against each other yet, and then somebody else, pretty much away, comes and is given all the courtesy and all the hospitality and all the welcome that it would like. It's a little bit sad about what it says about human nature and what it also says about political realities. And it reminds me of Palmerston and what he said, that there are no friendships in politics, there are only interests. And even there again, I'm not yet convinced after all this time that the three GCC countries did the right thing with that embargo. But again, I'm digressing, so I'll come back. It was just a wistful moment because I think it is wrong, it's inappropriate, and it's gauche. Anyway, the final point I would say is, in the middle of all the fireworks, the smiles, the florid words, the clapping, I suppose there'll be no hugging because of the coronavirus, and Netanyahu, the prime minister, is paranoid about his health. He went to the United States in a private plane. He didn't even want to take a passenger commercial plane with others because he was afraid of the virus. So forget the hugging and the kissing, but stick to the clapping, which incidentally, and you're going to like this, I hope, this is a sort of out of the box kind of YouTube episodes that I try to do. I'm now talking to you from a theater, and if you see today's setting, the mise en scène, it is basically with lots of people sitting and watching me on the screen. Well, imagine this is happening at the White House in DC, and it's not me, but it's those four people, Trump, Netanyahu, and the two foreign ministers. Anyway, the last point I would like to make here is just a reminder, again, another wistful reminder, a sad reminder about the Palestinians. Yep, the Palestinians were very upset when the United Arab Emirates said it was going to sign a treaty with Israel, and they got equally upset when Bahrain followed suit. And I suppose they will get yet again upset when other countries, and I don't know which one will come next. People are talking about the Sultanate of Oman, people are talking about Sudan, people are talking about the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I personally am not yet convinced that this is going to happen tomorrow. I think we're going to stick with those two at the moment, see how the ship sails across the waters, and then we can see more countries joining in, but I might be wrong. However, they're going to be upset. They are upset. And I've said this before, and I maintain my position that each of those countries, at the moment, the UAE and Bahrain, have the sovereign right to sign their own deals, to conclude their own peace deals with Israel. However, it saddens me that the Palestinians, who have such a rough history in the region, going to 48, when so many refugees left their houses, lost their houses, their properties, became refugees, and all the way to 2020, that the Palestinian reality is as dim as it could get at the moment. And yet in DC, we are we are celebrating something where Arab brotherhood or brotherly relations or whatever is by no means a factor in this peace deal. So sovereign, yes, they have the right to do it. Yes, and as what's her name? Hind Mani Al Utaiba, who is the director of strategic communications at the Foreign Ministry in Abu Dhabi, said in an article she wrote in Haaretz, and the Emiratis are now writing one article after the other in the Israeli newspapers. And I think Hind Al-Utaiba, I think, if I'm not mistaken, she's related to Yusuf Al-Utaiba, who's also been writing articles, who's also a mover and shaker in DC, in Washington. He's the UAE ambassador there. She wrote an article in Haaretz, and you can easily find that article if you Google it, that this peace deal is a significant opportunity for her country, the Emirates, as well as the region. But she says in that article, it is not a substitute for peace between Israelis and Palestinians. So it is a hopeful and historic opportunity. In her words, she talks about the new normal. She talks about the Pope's visit last year to the Emirates and how the Emirates is an open-minded country. Well, yes, go there and try to say anything that the leadership does not like, and then you will realize how open-minded it really is. But be that as it may, I'm trying to be positive today. Be that as it may, she's building on the Pope's visit to the Emirates and on the new normal, and saying this is yet another incremental step in bringing prosperity and peace and happiness in the region. Happiness, of course, happiness. The Saudi, also the Saudis now created a new ministry for happiness. Maybe we should talk to Boris Johnson. We might need a ministry for happiness in this country soon as well, in our country, in the UK. But okay, so it's hopeful, it's historic, it's a build-up on previous achievements, but it is not a substitute for peace between Israelis and Palestinians. And I'll tell you one thing. You can keep arguing with me, anybody can keep arguing with me that these deals have the full support of the Arab masses. They don't. They only have the support of the political leadership and the elites and business elites that surround those leaderships across the whole MENA and Gulf region. President El-Sisi jumped at the occasion to congratulate this deal with Bahrain and the UAE as well. This is the leadership, this is the elite, this is not the masses, this is not the people. And for me now, and I link what I'm saying this minute with what I said right at the start of this episode, that the political chieftains in Lebanon, remember I told you, they kiboshed the Prime Minister designate's ability to form a government yet. It will happen, it will come. The same is happening here. The political elites, the political chieftains, the political powers, the business people who benefit from this are the ones who are supportive of these deals, not the people. And whilst Palestinians are being deprived of a homeland, of a state of their own, of their right for self-determination, of their ability, in the words of a Christian Palestinian document called Kairos, or opportunity, whilst they're being deprived of hope and of the possibility to make peace, of justice. Therefore, I think we have not really achieved that glorious moment that we will see on our screens probably tonight when we are shown the news of those leaders with Trump doing his usual choreography and Netanyahu doing his choreography, and the two foreign ministers sounding very statesmanlike. So I leave it there. It's a question mark at the end about where we go next with this incremental peacemaking strategy adopted by those two countries. I also look at the MENA region, and within the MENA region, I look at Palestine, and I think, is it Canaan able here? I hope not. Take care.